Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? Like you were born into a script you never wrote, and every day you're just reciting your lines? Wake up, scroll, smile at people you don't like, sit through meetings you don't believe in, post happy photos while quietly falling apart inside, and the world claps for you. Keep it up, they say. You're doing great. But deep down, something is screaming, this isn't who I am. That voice? That's your soul, begging you to wake up. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us aren't actually living. We're performing, following rules we never questioned, chasing approval like it's air. And worst of all, we mistake the cage for comfort. I've been there too. Always busy, always nice, always exhausted. I called it being a good person. But Stoicism forced me to look deeper, to strip away the noise. And what I saw underneath was terrifying. If you want to improve, Epictetus said, be content to be thought foolish and stupid, because real change isn't glamorous. It doesn't get applause. It doesn't trend. It hurts. It's lonely. It's quiet, but it's real. And once you begin waking up, once you start questioning the habits that keep you stuck, there's no going back. I remember the moment everything changed. It wasn't a breakdown. It was something softer, but sharper. I realized I wasn't living my life. I was surviving someone else's expectations. That's when I stopped. Stopped chasing validation. Stopped apologizing for existing. Stopped pretending I was okay just to keep the peace. And in that silence, that terrifying, freeing silence, a rebellion was born. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that begs for attention. A quiet rebellion. A stoic one. Because Stoicism doesn't shout. It sharpens. It strengthens. One small choice at a time. You have power over your mind, not outside events, said Marcus Aurelius. Realize this and you will find strength. This video isn't just content. It's a mirror. If you've ever won and still felt hollow. If you've ever said yes when everything in you screamed no. If you've ever stayed silent just to keep things easy, then this isn't a lesson. It's a reckoning. It might just be the moment you stop performing and finally step into the life that was always yours. Let's begin. Habit number 1, the addicting trap of people pleasing. Just be nice. Don't rock the boat. Make everyone happy. Sound familiar? That was me. Always smiling. Always agreeable. Always saying yes while screaming no inside. And people loved me for it. But here's the truth they don't tell you. People-pleasing isn't kindness. It's self-abandonment disguised as politeness. I thought I was being generous. I thought I was being a good person. But deep down I was afraid. Afraid of conflict. Afraid of disappointing others. Afraid that if I ever stopped bending over backwards, I'd be abandoned. So I became what everyone wanted me to be. Quiet, helpful, convenient. But slowly, I disappeared. Piece by piece. Smile by smile. Yes by painful yes. And the worst part? No one noticed because I was too busy making sure they never had to. Marcus Aurelius once said, when you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. But when you're stuck in people-pleasing, you don't wake up feeling grateful. You wake up exhausted, bracing yourself for the next favor, the next demand, the next situation where you'll smile through gritted teeth. You don't feel free. You feel trapped in a cage you helped build. Here's what hit me like a freight train. People-pleasing isn't generosity. It's fear. Fear of being disliked. Fear of confrontation. Fear of the silence that follows after you finally say no. And what's even worse, the more I tried to please everyone, the less they respected me. What? Because when you constantly sacrifice your own needs, you teach people that yours don't matter. Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. And I realized, if I wanted to live a life of integrity, I had to stop performing. So one day I did something radical. I said no. No explanation. No apology. Just no. And the silence afterward? It felt like standing in front of a firing squad. But it was the first moment I felt free. That's the paradox. We think being liked will make us safe, but what really makes us safe is being honest, because when you finally stop people-pleasing, something amazing happens. The wrong people leave, the right people stay, and you begin to come back home to yourself. Here's the truth. People-pleasing is a slow kind of death. It burns you out. It numbs your voice. It makes you resent the very people you're trying to help. You smile while you bleed. You give while you break. You carry everyone else's comfort while sacrificing your own sanity. And for what? A thank you? A pat on the back? A moment of peace that never lasts? That's not peace. That's performance. True peace, real peace, comes when you protect your energy, your boundaries, your time. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's unpopular. So here's your practice. The next time someone asks you for something you don't want to give, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, if I say yes to them, am I saying no to myself? If the answer is yes, then say no, calmly, clearly, without guilt. You don't need an excuse. You don't need to justify protecting your peace. Will some people be upset? Yes. Will some relationships fade? Probably. But the ones that matter, they'll stay. And more importantly, you'll stay with yourself, with your values, with your power. Because saying no isn't rejection, it's alignment. And that's what Stoicism is all about. Not pleasing everyone, but living in harmony with what you truly believe. So stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. You don't owe the world your exhaustion. You owe it your truth. Habit number 2, holding grudges, the poison we mistake for protection. Let's talk about anger. That slow, bitter burn you carry. The tightness in your chest. The memory that won't stop replaying, day after day, night after night. They hurt you. They lied. They betrayed your trust. And now you're still holding on. Not because you want to, but because letting go feels like losing. You tell yourself you've moved on, but your jaw clenches when you hear their name. You smile in public, but inside, you're still fighting a battle they forgot about long ago. That's what a grudge does. It doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you stuck. I've been there. Someone I trusted shattered me in a way I didn't think was possible. And instead of healing, I held on to the anger. Because the pain made me feel powerful. Like I still had control. But I didn't. That anger followed me everywhere. Into new friendships. New relationships. It lived in the background of my life, like a shadow I couldn't shake. Seneca once said, "Anger, if not restrained, is more harmful to us than the injury that provokes it." I didn't understand that at first, but over time I learned. My grudge was doing more damage than their betrayal ever could. I thought I was punishing them, but I was punishing myself. I was losing sleep. I was losing joy. I was losing parts of me that had nothing to do with them. Here's the hard truth. Holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting them to suffer. But they don't. They've moved on. They're living their life. They might not even remember what they did. But you remember. You carry it. You relive it. And every time you do, you give away a piece of your peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "How much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" Anger is a spark, but a grudge? That's the wildfire. It consumes everything. And we hold on because we think forgiveness means weakness. Like letting go means saying, "It didn't matter." But forgiveness isn't approval. It isn't surrender. It's a choice to stop bleeding for someone else's mistake. I remember the night everything changed. I was sitting alone. Silent house. Everyone asleep. And the thought hit me. They're not carrying this anymore, but I still am. That's when I knew. It was time to let go. Not because they deserved it, but because I did. I deserved peace. I deserved freedom. I deserved to live a life where I decided what came next. Not my pain. Here's the Stoic wisdom. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters." They hurt you, but you choose what happens after that. You can let their actions define your story, or you can write a new one. So here's your practice. Sit with the anger. Let it rise. Let it speak. And then ask it, "Are you protecting me or just holding me back?" If the answer is pain, then it's time to let go. Write the letter. Cry the tears. Say the words. Then release them. You don't need to forgive them to their face. You don't need closure from the person who broke you. You just need to choose yourself again and again. The world won't stop turning when you let go of your grudge. But your world? It'll finally start to move forward. Because forgiveness isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's not forgetting. It's freedom. You don't let go because they were right. You let go because you're ready to be whole again. Habit number 3, ignoring red flags. When hope turns into self-betrayal, you know the feeling. Something feels off. A comment that cuts a little too deep. A pattern of silence when you need support. A look that makes you shrink instead of feel safe. And yet you stay. You tell yourself, maybe it's just a phase. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe if I just give a little more, they'll finally see my worth. But what you're really doing is bargaining with yourself. And the currency? Your peace, your self-worth, your future. I've been there. I saw the red flags. I felt them. But I didn't want to believe they were real. Because admitting the truth meant letting go. And letting go? That meant facing the void. So I stayed. I made excuses. I convinced myself that loyalty was more important than self-respect. But here's what I learned the hard way. When you ignore red flags, you don't avoid pain, you delay it. And when it finally hits, it hits harder. There were nights I cried quietly beside someone who said they loved me. Not because they were cruel, but because they made me feel invisible. And that was the heartbreak. Not the arguments, not the silence, but the emptiness. That kind of pain doesn't scream. It whispers, and it says, this isn't love. This is survival. The Stoics taught us to live in harmony with nature. And there's nothing natural about molding yourself into someone you're not, just to be loved by someone who doesn't see you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. I'd add, if it is not love, don't stay in it. Because real love doesn't confuse you. It doesn't drain you. And it definitely doesn't make you feel like you have to prove your worth every single day. But here's the real reason we stay. Fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear that maybe, just maybe, this is the best we'll ever get. But Epictetus reminds us, you are not your circumstances. You are your judgments. And when you judge yourself as unworthy of more, you settle for less. I once asked myself, if my best friend came to me with this exact story, what would I tell them? The answer was clear. Leave. Run. Protect your heart. So why couldn't I take that advice? Because I hadn't yet made peace with this truth. Walking away isn't giving up. It's growing up. Red flags don't disappear. They evolve. They multiply. And eventually they become red walls, keeping you trapped in a place where love is conditional and your spirit is small. The Stoics believed in virtue over comfort. And there is nothing virtuous about enduring what breaks you. True courage isn't staying. It's choosing yourself, without apology. When I finally walked away, I was terrified. Not of them, but of who I'd be without them. But what I found my voice again. I found silence that healed instead of hurt. I found the version of me I hadn't seen in years. So if you're ignoring red flags, ask yourself, am I shrinking to fit into their love? Am I losing myself just to feel chosen? Am I trading peace for the illusion of partnership? If the answer is yes, you don't need another sign. You already know. And when you leave, if you choose to, do it with grace. Not because they were wrong. Not because you want revenge. But because you are finally ready to be right with yourself. Forgiveness is stoic. Clarity is stoic. Walking away from what no longer serves your soul? That's not weakness. That's wisdom. You are not too much. You are not too emotional. You are not broken. You're simply someone who finally decided, I deserve more than red flags. I deserve redemptive peace. Let go. Not because they're bad, but because you're done betraying yourself just to be loved. And that is where your real story begins. Habit number 4, staying silent on important issues. When silence becomes a betrayal, there comes a moment in every life. A moment when your heart starts pounding, your hands tighten, and your soul whispers, say something. this isn't right. But instead, you lower your eyes, you force a smile, and you tell yourself, it's not my place. In that moment, when your voice could have mattered, you choose silence. I've been there. In a meeting, a colleague, kind, brilliant, was being mocked, belittled, dismissed. Everyone heard it. Everyone felt the tension. And I said nothing. I told myself, it's not my business. It's not worth the risk. Someone else will step in. But no one did. And the weight of my silence? It stayed with me far longer than the cruelty I witnessed. Seneca once wrote, "He who does not prevent a crime when he can encourages it." Back then, I didn't fully grasp that. Now I do. Because silence isn't neutral. It's participation. We often think silence is strength, that not speaking is maturity, that avoiding conflict is the high road. But sometimes, silence is just fear. Fear of discomfort, fear of judgment, fear of rocking the boat. The Stoics weren't passive. They didn't sit back and watch the world burn. They taught that courage, real courage, means standing firm for what is right, even when it's unpopular, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. There was a time a friend was slipping into a toxic relationship. Everyone saw it. Everyone said nothing. And me? I stayed quiet too. I told myself, it's their life. I don't want to upset them. I should stay out of it. But later, when everything crashed, they looked at me and said, "Why didn't you warn me? Why didn't anyone say something?" I had no answer, just shame. Because my silence wasn't kindness. It was cowardice. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it." So what does it mean to live like a Stoic in today's world? It means speaking when it matters. Not for applause, not to be right, but because truth demands a voice. And sometimes that voice has to be yours. I still remember the day I stayed silent during a family dinner. A relative made a cruel, prejudiced comment. Everyone froze. And again, I said nothing. Not because I agreed, but because I didn't want to ruin the mood. Later that night I couldn't sleep. Not because of what was said, but because I didn't speak. That's when I realized, peace built on silence isn't peace at all. It's just the absence of conflict. And absence isn't virtue. It's avoidance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." A good person doesn't just keep the peace. They protect it. They speak. They act. They rise when it's easier to stay seated. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, there might be backlash. You might lose people. But you'll gain something far more valuable. Your integrity. The Stoics didn't fear discomfort. They feared dishonor. They feared the soul-crushing weight of knowing they betrayed their own values. Not because they had to, but because they chose comfort over courage. Let me be clear. This isn't about being loud for the sake of it. It's not about confrontation. It's about quiet conviction. The steady, calm voice that says, "This is wrong, and I won't stand by." That's Stoicism. That's strength. And the truth is, people will remember. Not everyone will agree. Not everyone will thank you. But someone will see your courage. And it will spark something in them. So the next time you feel that fire rising, that knot in your stomach, that call in your chest that says, "Speak up." Don't smother it. Don't swallow it. Let it rise. Let it speak. Let it live. Because your voice is more than sound. It's a stand, a compass. And when you use it, even if it trembles, you become unshakable. Habit number 5, seeking constant entertainment. The quiet escape that's stealing your life. There's a strange emptiness that creeps in when the noise stops. No more notifications. No more reels. No more background music to drown out your thoughts. Just silence. And for many of us, that silence is terrifying. So we run from it. We open another app. Play another video. Scroll. Not because we care, but because we're afraid of what we might feel if we don't. There was a time when I couldn't sit still for more than 5 minutes without grabbing my phone. I told myself I was just unwinding, just taking a break, just catching up. But deep down I knew the truth. I wasn't relaxing. I was escaping boredom. escaping self-reflection, escaping the uncomfortable questions I didn't want to face. Marcus Aurelius once said, "People look for retreats for themselves, the country, the seaside, the mountains. But nowhere can a person find a retreat more peaceful than in their own soul." But how can we retreat into ourselves when we're constantly running from our own thoughts? I used to wake up and reach for my phone before my eyes had even adjusted to the light. Social media, messages, that quick dopamine hit. And what started as 5 minutes became an hour, then 2. By the time I put my phone down, I was already anxious, already behind. But I wasn't just behind on work, I was behind on myself. The Stoics taught that we must master the inner world before trying to conquer the outer one. Yet most of us have handed our minds over to distraction. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And isn't that exactly what constant entertainment does? It eats our hours, our focus, our clarity, and gives us back nothing. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a movie, a song, or a good laugh. But when every quiet moment demands noise, when we panic at stillness, that's not relaxation. That's addiction. And it's subtle, because it feels safe. But comfort can be just as dangerous as chaos, when it keeps us numb. I remember one afternoon the power went out. No Wi-Fi, no TV, my phone battery nearly dead. At first I felt lost, restless. I kept checking my screen out of habit. But as the minutes passed, I noticed the stillness. I heard birds I'd never listened to before. I journaled, not because I had to, but because my thoughts finally had room to breathe. And for the first time in a long while, I felt present. You see, constant entertainment isn't just a habit. It's a barrier. A wall we build to avoid the parts of ourselves that are lonely, afraid, or uncertain. But those are the parts that need us most. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." What if you sat in silence for 30 minutes today? What if you walked without headphones? No podcast, no playlist, just you and your thoughts? Might feel strange, but that's where the real growth begins. When was the last time you felt truly inspired scrolling TikTok? When was your last breakthrough born from binge watching? Exactly. Breakthroughs don't live in noise. They live in stillness. The Stoics believed we become what we give our attention to. If we constantly feed our minds with junk, we become hollow, busy but empty. And if we never sit with ourselves, how can we know who we truly are? I started scheduling silence into my life. I called it mental training. No distractions, no devices, just me, and whatever showed up. At first it was ugly. Memories, fears, regrets. But eventually beneath the noise, I found peace and purpose. Here's the truth. Your boredom is trying to tell you something, but you keep muting it. You keep feeding it noise. What if you stopped? What if you sat with it and listened? You might hear something that changes everything. So here's your challenge. Turn it all off. Not forever. Just long enough to remember who you are without it. Because your mind is not a landfill for algorithms. It's a temple. But only if you treat it like one. The next time you reach for your phone out of habit, pause. The next time you fill the silence with noise, pause. Ask yourself, what am I running from? And what might I find if I stayed still? You're not here to be entertained. You're here to live. And life, real life, doesn't happen in the scroll. It happens in the stillness. Habit number 6, oversharing. We live in an age where privacy is becoming a luxury. People share everything. Their feelings, their wounds, their heartbreaks. With a single tap, the world knows who made you cry, what made you angry, and why you feel lost. And we call it authenticity. We dress it up as connection. But here's the truth. Are we really connecting? Or are we just begging to be seen? I've been there. Posting about my pain. Writing long captions hoping someone would get me. Thinking that if I exposed my heart, someone, anyone, would finally see its worth. But every time I posted, I didn't feel lighter. I felt emptier. Because I wasn't processing my emotions. I was broadcasting them. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen more than we speak." You don't have to say everything to be understood. You don't have to reveal your scars to be real. The one who truly sees you isn't the one who watches your story. It's the one who stays, even when you say nothing. Oversharing feels like vulnerability, but often it's just a way to seek validation, because we haven't learned how to validate ourselves. And that was me. For years, Stoicism teaches us that we can't control how others respond. We can only control our own mind. When you overshare, you're not opening up. You're giving away your peace for a brief moment of attention. Or you're placing your most fragile truths into hands that might never deserve them. I once confided in someone I thought I could trust. It backfired. They told others. They twisted my words. And eventually, they used it against me. What hurt most wasn't the betrayal. It was knowing I handed them the weapon. Seneca once wrote, "Not everyone deserves to know your truth. Some things are sacred. Some wounds need silence, not spotlights." Choosing to keep things to yourself doesn't make you fake. It makes you wise. It means you've grown. You now know the difference between sharing to connect and sharing to escape. I started journaling instead of posting, calling real friends instead of live streaming pain. I learned how to sit with myself through the storm without needing an audience. And in that quiet, I found strength I didn't know I had. You see, oversharing feels like you're being open, but often you're actually blurring your boundaries. You confuse being heard with being exposed. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Your secrets are your freedom. Give them away and you've given up control." You get to decide who enters your inner world. And you must decide. Not everyone deserves to know why you're hurting. Not everyone will hold your story with care. Some will use it to cut you deeper. So when should you share? Ask yourself, am I sharing to connect? Or because I don't know how to sit with my emotions alone? If it's the second, pause. Write. Reflect. Breathe. Then, if needed, share with someone trustworthy. Real authenticity isn't about saying everything. It's about saying the right things to the right people at the right time. It's knowing that your experiences are valuable, and not everyone has earned access. When you learn to hold back, when you protect the sacred space inside your mind, you don't become cold. You become anchored. You don't need the whole world to understand you. Just a few people who see the pieces you choose to share. The rest? Let it live quietly inside you. That's not isolation. That's freedom. Because what you keep is also where you find your deepest power and your peace. Have you noticed? No one's tying you down. No one's chaining your hands. It's you. You've been the one putting those shackles on. With every toxic habit, every time you tried to please everyone, every moment you ran away from your own truth. And only you can set yourself free. We weren't born to live like shadows. We weren't born to be liked by everyone. We weren't born to be drowned in cheap distractions and forget who we are. You were born for self-mastery, for awareness, for a life of intention, not automation. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be emotionless. It teaches you to be unshakable, unmoved by other people's opinions, untouched by praise or criticism, unshaken by the chaos of the world. The strongest people don't shout. They stand quietly in the middle of a storm. And don't flinch. You don't have to scream to be heard. You just have to live honestly. Be honest with your limits. Be honest with your values. Be honest even if no one else understands. So if today you feel stuck, always trying to fit in but still feeling empty, always sharing your pain but still feeling unseen, always staying busy but deep down still feeling alone, then maybe it's time. Time to come back to yourself. Start with silence. Start with one no. Start with one evening. No screens, no noise. Just you and your breath. Freedom doesn't need much. Just one decision. From this moment on, I'm no longer living by other people's expectations. I'm living by my values. Direct hit CTA. If this message hit home, share this video with someone who needs it. Comment below. What's one habit you're ready to let go of? And remember, every day is a chance to begin again. One mindful decision at a time. Peace isn't something you find. It's something you build. And you're building it every single day you show up for yourself. Are you ready to walk forward, clear, grounded, and free? Then start now, quietly, bravely, and fully you.